Welcome to the Huddle Within podcast, where we go beyond the surface to uncover the real impact of sports on our lives, whether it's lessons of resilience, the passion that fuels us, or the stories that connect us all. This is where the game gets personal. I am Daniel, a regular sports fan just like you, and together we'll explore what sports truly means beyond the surface. So step right into the huddle and let's get into it. What is going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Huddle Within podcast. It is with great honor that I bring on a co-host for today. Normally we've had people that I've interviewed, but going to be our first official sort of co-host for this show. Would you like to introduce yourself, Joe, to everyone?
How's it going, guys? My name's Joe. Happy to be on this. Thanks for inviting me on, Dan. It's been a long time coming. We've definitely spoken about doing something like this for a while, so it's good to see it finally come to fruition.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, thank you for coming on as well. And I think when I think about a sport fan, you're the first probably two or three people that pop up in my head. So it's great to have you on here to discuss these things. And I'm sure we've had these discussions in the past before, but to actually put it out to the world is something that I'm extremely excited about. And I think what better topic to talk about, especially when it comes to us two personally, than I guess why supporting a losing team is actually fun and why there are some positive kind of connotations when it comes to, supporting a losing team. So I guess with starting that, it only makes sense for you to introduce your teams at the moment, how they're going and how they were as well across probably 3 or 4 of the sporting codes. We don't want to obviously inflate people with too much sporting teams, but just probably your top 3, I guess, sporting teams.
Okay, well, my 3 probably biggest watch sports at the moment, it's definitely the NBA at the top. I'd probably say soccer is second, and then third's probably AFL footy. That's probably going to change because the AFL season's just started, but anyway, so my teams are the Minnesota Timberwolves, Manchester City, and Essendon.
Yeah, Manchester City.
Very different, I guess. 3 very different clubs in terms of like current and previous success, like history and all that sort of stuff. So I guess I'm kind of cop it in a whole bunch of different ways. One of those teams is actually doing quite good at the moment, but the other 2 aren't. So it's kind of a mixed bag. As we know, as you might know, if you're into NBA at all, the Timberwolves are probably one of the worst. Historically, one of the worst sports franchises ever, until probably the last 3-4 years, where that's all changed, where we've gone from, I guess, finishing at the bottom of the table for years and years on end, and ultimately going to the conference finals, which is one step away from the finals in the NBA. So I guess that whole journey is just unbelievably feels kind of fake in itself. But, it definitely happened. So there's that one, and then we go to Manchester City with terrible, obviously for the first, I guess, 100 or so years of the history, and then obviously big bit of money gets given to us, and a lot of things change. Winning many trophies. I think we've won 6 of the last 7 Premier Leagues.
Don't remind me.
I think that's the number.
Yeah, I think it's something like that.
Not winning it this year. It's a terrible season, but at the end of the day, it's been much worse in the past, so you can't really be upset. And then in the AFL, I go for Essendon. Haven't won a finals game in 20 years, so that's
It's more than that. It's 25, mate.
Sorry?
It's 25 years, mate.
No, since we won a finals game, it's been 20
finals.
years.
Oh, yeah. I thought you meant grand final. Yeah, you're right.
It's probably going to reach 25, but
yeah.
That's a team that was very good at the beginning, and as the years went on, but not throughout my life. So that's definitely been hard to get around, but we still do because we love the game, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are the 3 main things that I'm watching at the moment and I'm supporting. Like I said, 3 very different situations, which is kind of cool. It wouldn't be fun if they were all winning every week. So Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think all three have had their moments of like full sorrows, and I think most recently, as of late, maybe not too much Manchester City, but definitely the Timberwolves and the
Mm.
Bombers as well. And I think when we discuss this, we're obviously going to talk about how at the start, or maybe when you started supporting the teams, because I know when you started, they weren't too good, and Essendon still not being too good, to when maybe they eventually get good, and that kind of ties into why it's a positive thing. So for me personally, Collingwood fan, they've probably given me a lot of good memories, being born in '98 all the way up to now, winning 2 premierships, but losing a lot of premierships too. Very notably, famous for choking a lot of grand finals, and then followed by Manchester United, who as a kid was spoiled with success, but to be honest, it wasn't too much for me because I only really started understanding and really following it probably the last 2 titles we won. So maybe going into 2012, 2013, which is when Man City actually started to ascend to what they are now. Well, obviously not this year, but obviously what they are now from that. And then, yeah, with that 10 years now of probably even more since we've won a title, and United have been notoriously famous for just being a terrible club. So it's been such a contrast to what like people know, I've only known 2 seasons of that realistically. So I've actually been most of my time as a United fan suffering. And then probably right now, undoubtedly the worst franchise in NBA, and also like the Timberwolves, probably the most worst franchise in franchise history of all franchises sporting, the Washington Wizards. And yeah, I think it might be personal, but that's also why I wanted to talk about them as well, because this is probably the worst team I've ever gone for. And there are some kind of things that I sort of do like about it. And yeah, we'll get into it as we move on. But I think the first thing I wanted to ask, and I'll probably bring it to NBA the most here, because that's where we see most of the teams change in terms of abilities and skills. But I think the first thing we need to ask ourselves is, I'll ask you first, why we decide to go for our team. So you first, like, why the Timberwolves?
That's actually a really good question. I remember back when I was a kid, I didn't follow the NBA. I didn't really care for it. But all that I really knew was Derrick Rose and the Chicago Bulls. Um, so I remember fast forward to about 2017 or 2018, all my friends were getting into the NBA. And I was like, you know what, I'll give it a go myself. And then one day I remember I think I was at uni. I was in a class and everyone was going crazy in the group chat, because obviously when you're all into sport, you speak in the group chat. Everyone's saying, "Oh, Derrick Rose, he's gone crazy. He's gone dumb. Like he's got 30 points. It's only the third quarter." I'm like, "Well, that's kind of cool." So I searched it up, and it was the Timberwolves versus the Jazz. It's a famous game.
I do
A lot of
remember that.
people know the game I'm talking about. And I watched it, and I go, "This is crazy." Like I really liked this play, even though I wasn't a fan of the sport. And like what he's doing now after everything like that he's gone through, it's it's inspirational. Like he could have just given up, and like he's had what 2 ACL injuries and he's been kicked off teams. He could have just given up, and he's out there stepping up and doing his thing. So anyway, that happened, and then I look at the roster and I see some of the players. I see Jimmy Butler at the time he was on the team. Then I saw Taj Gibson, and I saw Luol Deng, and I saw Tom Thibodeau, the coach. And I was like, this is really similar to that Bulls team that I know. Maybe I'll go for this team. And then from there, that's kind of where I'm not going to say fanaticism, but like I'm really into the sport now, and that's where it really came from. Mind you, at the time, I had no idea about anything NBA. Like obviously, I knew LeBron James and Steph Curry, all the big players, but I didn't know anything about history. Like I didn't know who Kevin Garnett was. I didn't know who Karl Anthony Towns was. I didn't know how bad the Wolves were, just currently and like historically as well. Like I've learned a lot of like things that have happened in that franchise, and it just makes you laugh sometimes. So um, it's definitely been a wild ride from there, especially like because we were bad, and I generally thought that we weren't ever going to be good. So it was a bit hard at the beginning, but it definitely, it's paid off.
Yeah.
Definitely
Oh,
paid off. But yeah, that's basically the reason why I went for them.
yeah. I think I'd love to talk about, yeah, going through that journey of being as a Timberwolves fan. Mine's a bit different. For the Wizards, it wasn't as deep as that. And I think I've got an episode talking about Derrick Rose and his comeback. So something that's extremely inspiring and something that we love to talk about on these podcasts is how like you face adversity, you go through things, and then you can come back and get a 50-point win. And I think people don't really understand those moments is what kind of encapsulates fans and gets people really loving and having attachment to these athletes. So it's awesome to see that that was an example of you really getting into that and actually looking deep into what inspires you and what makes you kind of go through life as well. Because I think that his comeback gives you or gives everyone inspiration to continue going and growing through their lives. And it might not be from that athletic standpoint, but definitely through like career relationships and being able to just kind of go through your life. But again, without blabbering on, my reason was completely different. The only reason why I went for the Wizards is because I just saw the name, Washington Wizards, and I just started laughing. And I was like, you know what? I was like, I never loved NBA like you. And the first person I ever like knew about NBA wasn't even Michael Jordan, was Kobe Bryant. And I thought, you know, I'll tie myself to the Lakers because of Kobe, because of this, because of that. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to get into the NBA. I thought I'd decide to go for the Golden State Warriors. And then I was like, you know what? They're like too good at the moment. Like I feel like me coming in to support them is not going to be as fun and rewarding as going for a team that's probably not as good. So that's what led me to the Wizards. I watched a John Wall highlight for about 10 minutes and I just instantly fell in love with the franchise because of the way he played. And then that's what got me into kind of supporting them and going through some decent success, not probably as bad as the Wolves, like making a few playoff runs, getting to Game 7 against Boston, and to now probably being in the situation where you started. So I think this is probably good advice for me because I am hoping that eventually the Wizards get to where the Timberwolves were last year. Yeah, I guess how's the journey been, and I guess what positives have you got out of it? Because I can imagine there'd be more positives, a lot of negatives to start, but getting to this moment makes it so much rewarding, of course.
Well, my initial thing is kind of contradictory to like what we're talking about here, and it's like the fun of going for a bad team. On the surface, that's not true at all, because obviously it's not fun seeing your team, you know, be bad, not ever win, get embarrassed up and down the court or game. You know, social aspect as well. When your friends know your team's not doing well, they're gonna let you know about it as well, which can be a bit annoying. But yeah, honestly, the question's more to do with how the journey's gone.
Yeah, basically. So pretty much like team's doing bad, obviously. It hasn't started well, but eventually it's gone to where it needs to be.
Yeah.
So I guess talk through because this topic is obviously why, and on the surface it's not right, but deeply like getting to that moment, you wouldn't have been able to have the heights and happiness if you weren't able to go through all the tough times.
Well, yeah, that's from a surface, all that kind of stuff, you know, it doesn't help. But when you look at it much deeper and you kind of like reflect on the journey, I guess it's some of the like most enjoyable, I guess, times ever, because you see those teams, they're from, you know, you see all these players that you have no idea who they are, and then they turn into being like cult figures. You know, they're loved by the fans at home, they're loved by the fans around the league. I'll give you one example. Naz Reid. I love that man. I'm just going to say that.
Shout out Naz Reid if you're listening.
Yeah, he was a undrafted center. We picked him up after the draft. No one knew who this guy was, and he's just exploded onto the scene and gone from undrafted to sixth man of the year. People have tattoos of him. You know, there's bars that have like signature cocktails named after him over there. It's kind of crazy, and it comes back to that whole thing of growing as these players are growing at the same time. So obviously at the start of their journey, they're at one place in their life, and at the end, they're in a complete other. And this can span over like years of time, which is kind of like, I guess it's kind of like life as well.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
When you see them at the end, you can kind of look back on your life and be like, this is where I was doing when they were doing that compared to where I am now. So I guess it helps with like nostalgia and growth. And it helps you kind of like, I guess, assess where you are and where they are as well. That's probably the first thing. Another thing I'd think about more is basically that you get to watch players with no pressure whatsoever do their thing. And I guess it helps you, I guess, develop more of an identity with these players and with this team. And as they go forward, like, you've watched them change, you've watched them grow, you've watched them turn into what they inevitably become. And yeah, I guess that's basically the like surface of it. Like, there's more, but like that's basically the easiest thing I could tell you.
Oh, it's pretty powerful because
Yeah.
like while you see them going through your journey, and as you mentioned, you're going through your own journey. Like we're all going through our journey. So when we see these athletes like prosper and succeed, it does inspire us to do the same thing, and we kind of live through their succession. So that's where it creates our identity. I think it's more than winning. We actually see them like develop into what they become in the future. So like I can see with Collingwood, like we struggled for a few years, but then getting a new coach and seeing how the players grew into that identity and kind of made a way for playing, and then the fans kind of backing them, supporting them even through the tough times, just shows that loyalty and connection that the fans have with the players. I think that success that they have, that's where the connection gets built. And it also subconsciously, maybe going too far on this, but I think the fact that they still getting like unwilling support from like undeniable support from fans despite how bad they're going through and how bad they're doing, I think gives them a bit of motivation as well. And then as a fan, if you see them developing and growing, you kind of feel that you're a part of that and you've contributed to their success. Like obviously they have to put the hard work physically and they have to be out there actually playing. But I
Mm.
guess support is something that motivates everyone. So I think if I was doing something and the more support I was getting from people, I think the more successful I would be and the more motivated I would be to wanting to do well, because you don't want to let down those people that believe in you.
Mm.
And I think in the case of these bad teams, it's those loyal fans that, yeah, they understand that, okay, we're not good enough, it's going to be tough. But going through that, if we help these athletes, if we help these people, we're going to have the same success. We're going to reap the same rewards. Because let me tell you, you've probably seen when Manchester City win the league. I've saw when Collingwood won the league, the Premiership. It's an unbelievable feeling.
Mm.
Timberwolves going to the Western Conference Finals. It's an unbelievable feeling.
Unbelievable.
Like, tell me about that. Like, from all that you said, like, how do you feel you contributed to that? I know it sounds a bit like condescending in a way, but
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you know what I mean?
Well, I think the fan base getting behind a team when, they're at their lowest, just makes it all sweeter when they get to their highest. Like, as a fan, seeing the Wolves make the conference finals, I honestly, if you told me that would happen 5 years ago, I'd laugh at you. Um, yeah, it's truly something that I wouldn't even expect to ever be talking about. So seeing it like happen in front of my eyes, it's just it still just doesn't feel real, to be
Mm.
honest with you. Um, I think back to last year in the playoffs. That's when it was. It was last season, and I just think like, wow, what a time to be alive. You know what I mean? And you can see like you see the games, like the crowd is bigger and better than it has in years. They get behind the team better, and it kind of builds an expectation as well, which is kind of like the negative of the success. But like, um, it's just crazy. Like that's the only word I can give it to
Yeah.
you. Like, it's crazy. Like, um, that franchise isn't supposed to be good ever.
Yeah, exactly. I know what you mean. Like on the surface, everyone doesn't talk about Timberwolves. They're not a big market team. They're not someone that gets media coverage.
Mm.
Yeah, you're right. They're not meant to be good. So when they get good, people are like obviously one surprised, but two very quick to diminish their success. And I think it's perfect that you segmented this going into the expectations. I think when you support a team that is losing, it's actually sometimes better because of the expectations that you have or preset. Like United, for example, they haven't been good for over 10 years, but they're always expected to win the Premier League based on their stature and based on their previous performances. But if we look at realistically, 10 years is a long time before someone wins the league. So when is
Mm.
it going to be something that is a bit more like people got to take a bit of a rest and understand that they're not good? And we have to go through this to develop, to grow, to eventually win. And I think that's the tough thing about going for teams that always win, because once you win one, you're always expected to win, you're expected to
Yeah.
win, you're expected to win. And then when you start to lose, you can see the psychology of people change. You can see the mentalities change. If you see it when dynasties are over, Manchester City is probably the biggest example. Look at like probably the backlash people are copying, despite Manchester City winning the league for the last 6 or 7 years, or 6 or 7,
Yeah.
but 4 in a row, as you mentioned. And then people just like this year feels like that doesn't mean nothing. That hasn't happened. So there's always like that flip of the coin where
Yeah, it's
you're on the
crazy.
top.
Like,
It's just fandom.
like it is kind of like, again, crazy
Yeah,
because I think we're fifth on the ladder.
yeah,
People acting like we're switched with United. I think United's down in the bottom half.
yeah. We are.
So people are like acting like it's kind of like flipped,
Yeah,
if that makes sense. Um, yeah, I guess it's just what's the word I'm looking for here? It's when you're a fan, you feel like entitled
yes,
when you go for a
yes,
team
hundred
of
percent.
that stature.
Mm.
So when you don't meet expectations, like obviously you're not going to win the Premier League every year. Like it's
Impossible.
it's
Yeah.
pretty hard to win like at once.
Mm.
So like some people just expect to win it every year, but you can't do it. Like it's not going to happen. Doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter how much money you spend. Doesn't matter how good your team is. Doesn't matter how good your coach is. It's not going to happen every year.
Mm.
And I think that goes more down to, I guess, fatigue.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, we've won most of the titles in the last, what, 10, 15 years
Yeah.
even. Mostly with the same team. Um, I know a lot of those players are not the players they were even last season. And I think that would come due to those expectations. It probably goes to like a point where you try to, I guess, hit those expectations so much that you just kind of like drop off and fatigue and, you lose it a bit. But I feel like that's human nature at the end of the day. Like you
For sure.
can't be at your best 100% of the time, even though you'd like to be. But yeah, it is what it is at the end of the day. Can't win them all.
Yeah, it's true. Well, I think that's why I think losing teams appreciate the small moments more.
Yeah.
So I think even like in real life example, playing for a relegated team, winning one game was like the equivalent of winning a World Cup because that never came up.
Yeah.
And I have to safely say that being in a team that is relatively winning games, the feeling of winning with the worst team was great because it's much bigger than winning with a small team. Like we have those unexpected expectations. So sometimes I think Premier League is probably the best example because there are teams that probably never going to win. But let's look at the most recent cup, Newcastle winning the EFL Cup. They haven't won a trophy in over 50 years. And this is their
Since the
first
80s, was it? The 70s or the
60s,
80s?
60s or 70s. I can't get the year off my head, but it's definitely been over 40 years since they've won any trophy. Not to even mention just like a trophy, just any trophy. And like for them to celebrate and kind of have that feeling, it just makes those 50 years of pain so worth it for just one trophy. And I think that's the beauty of the sport. And you can see that the fans still stay loyal despite that.
Yeah.
And they don't have the expectations as high as what a Man City or Man United fan have. And then when it's blown by, like even them making Champions League is like winning a league for them.
It's huge, yeah.
And winning against United on the road is massive. And I think that's where the benefits of probably being a losing team comes, because with a lot of torture, a lot of suffering, you get to appreciate the small wins more. And I think I relate that to life as well, because I think in human nature, a lot of us forget to really appreciate our small wins. But when we look back on some things that we've done in our past that makes us successful, we spoke about this before, we actually feel good in that moment, and it's unbelievable feeling. There are times where you've just felt unbelievably happy, and then, yeah, that's something that you're settled with. And I'm not saying that we need to settle for more things, but when we talk about a team perspective, that's what happens when teams change over time. You're going to reach your successes, but then there's going to be moments where you're bad and you lead up to eventual, success. But I think continuing on, I think another, topic that we can understand is, that underdog mentality as well. So there's always like that satisfaction of proving doubters wrong. So I think the Timberwolves are a perfect example of that. Last season, obviously everyone thought and penciled in the Nuggets of winning the final. And I guess talk about that experience of, was we mentioned about getting there, but kind of that specific important game series of Game 7 It was such a back and forth. It was 2-0 down, then
Yeah,
back to 2-2, 2-0 up, sorry, back to 2-2. And then knowing that the Nuggets were supposed to be in the finals and then actually being the
yeah.
underdogs to beat them. So just talk about that.
Well, the thing about it is, like, I didn't expect to win myself. Like,
Mm.
even last year, we versed the Suns in the first round, and they blew us out every single time we versed them in the season. So I didn't even expect to get out the first round. Um, so winning that was enough for me in itself.
Mm-hmm.
So when I found out, like, yeah, we're versing the Nuggets, we're versing Nikola Jokic, the best player in the world,
Mm.
um,
He is.
which I stand by,
Mm.
I was like, okay, they're going to beat us in 6 games maybe. So that series from the onset, like, we won the first two, then we lost the next three, and then
Mm.
we won the next two. So it was 2-0 to 3-2 to 4-3.
You had a real
Um,
roller coaster moment.
yeah, let me tell you something. We went up 2-0, and I was like, we're gonna sweep them.
Yeah,
I
the
was
playoffs is
slightly
so funny like
and I'm
that.
like, what's going on? Like,
Yeah, because
get to
there
game
were two on the
three.
road, right? First two
Yeah,
games were on the
we won
road.
the
So,
first two in
yeah,
Denver.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then we dropped the next two, and it was they're gonna sweep us. And that in itself is a very, like, stressful thing, because you're
Of
like, we
course.
just had a 2 game lead, and it's
Mm.
like we're on top of the world, nothing can touch us, because beating them on their home court twice in a row is unbelievable in the playoffs.
Yeah, especially
So
with the high altitude that Denver has.
yeah,
Everyone talks
that
about
playing in
that.
Denver's crazy. Like,
Yeah.
especially it, the the performances that Nikola Jokic put in from game 3, 4, and 5. I was like, there's absolutely nothing we can do here. Like,
Mm.
it chalked it up. We'll be better next year. You know, going from not making the playoffs to, getting out in the first round to making the second round. It's progress.
Mm.
And then I just remember game 6. We beat them by like 45 points, which was unreal. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I just penciled that in as a loss before the game started. But, like, I watched it and I was like, we might actually win this. Like, you don't go to a closeout game and lose by 40 points. Like, you don't do
Yes,
that.
that's true.
So it's pretty bad. And then obviously the game 7, 20-point comeback in game 7. Like, at halftime, I was like, it's over. Like, roller
It's been
coaster
fun. It's been
ride.
fun.
But,
It's been a
it's
ride.
been
Yeah.
fun. Like, I can't hate. Like,
Yeah.
we did better than we did last year. We're not supposed to be like the best team in the league. So, I kind of accepted it. And then, I was working. Like, I was at work and I had like an earphone in, and I was just listening to it. And it's just, you just hear them cutting it down and down. And I kind of get excited when when it starts cutting down, but then there's still a thought in my head like, nah, it's the Nuggets. They're gonna close us out. That's what they do. They make you feel like it's close, but then they shut you out at the end, as they did in the first round against the Lakers last season.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, it was just an avalanche. And honestly, I kind of blacked out that whole fourth quarter. I don't remember much of it. I just remember being at work and, like, being in like a trance of like happiness. I honestly, I can't even explain to you how that felt winning that. Like, it, it's kind of like it's kind of cringe to say, but it's a bit of an out of body experience.
Yeah. Oh,
Like, it's like, what's happened for this to, like, unfold in front of my eyes? Like, how do we go from such a low point in the franchise? Like, obviously the catalyst for this was the Jimmy Butler saga,
for
and
sure.
we were very bad after that. And then all of a sudden we've got Anthony Edwards and we're in the Western Conference Finals. It's just
Full circle. Full circle
it's a full
moment.
circle
Yeah.
moment. Yeah,
Yeah.
it just brings you joy,
Yeah.
because obviously in life, everyone goes through this. Like, you'll have your problems in life, whether they're known to people or they're not. And everyone goes through things. Everyone's stressful about stuff. Everyone's got deadlines they got to meet. But when you can turn on the TV and watch your team play, like, it's like it goes.
Yeah. Nothing matters. Like,
later.
you're out of the world. So
And
true.
when your team pulls up with something like that, it kind of like leaks out into your personal life to the point where the things that you're worried about, you don't really worry about them as much, because you're on such like a different level of happiness that like
100%.
nothing else bothers you at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I feel like you kind of like it's kind of crazy that a sport can do that, but like you get to that level of happiness that it just makes you excel everywhere else.
Yeah. It gives you that confidence to just
yeah,
break through walls and everything.
yeah,
I
definitely,
can
like-
I can definitely agree. I think
Like-
yeah, you go. He needs a break. Ladies and gentlemen, he needs a break from that passion. That's what we love about sport fandom. But it's so true. Like, I think my most recent example of this, and it's sad because it's been a long time ago, but I just look back to the 2018 preliminary final between Collingwood and Richmond, where Mason Cox just came in and put on a clinic. It was like, for me, going into that match, Richmond were obviously, they won 3 of the last 4 years, the premierships, I think it was. But this was their second year as they were trying to go back to back, and they finished first on the table. And we were just a new emerging team. We weren't good for a few years, and then we just had this crazy run in the season. Got to the prelim. We already lost to West Coast. And we're not going to talk about the grand final because it's not about that, but we'll talk about the prelim. Before getting to the grand final, I was feeling good, but I wouldn't say that we were the favourites. Richmond obviously were the dynasty team at the time, and we just came out and literally punched them in the mouth. Like, it was unbelievable. I could not have expected what I saw. Even at halftime when we were up by 40, I thought, they're going to come back. This is too good to be true. This is too good to be true. And when I had the reality, it was when Grundy, I think, kicked the snap with 12 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. I remember the commentary off by heart. I think I've watched the highlights about 100 times since then.
Yeah.
That's when I knew we won. And again, same as you, the feeling that I had was, one, an out-of-body experience, and two, it just felt like I could do whatever I need to do. And I can do whatever I put my mind to. I'm inspired. Like, despite all the roadblocks that Collingwood had leading up to that, they still managed to overcome it. And that's what inspires me. And I think that's what made you go get a bottle of water and drink, because that's what creates moments for us. And it goes through all the suffering that you kind of go through as a sport fan, but also related to life, because it's our distraction, realistically. Sport, in reality, whatever happens in sport, it doesn't actually impact our lives on the surface, but mentally, physically, and spiritually, it brings a lot of that out of us. And I think that's why we love the game so much. And we spoke about, I guess, the success of Man City a little bit, the success of the success of the Timberwolves trying to get to the conference finals. I would love to ask, what would be kind of that moment for Essendon to make you feel like that? What do you think it needs to be? Because I know it's a long way off, but you've been supporting every year, and eventually they will, hopefully for your sake and not for my sake, win something, at least a final. But I think, what would make you feel like that, like you did for the Wolves and like I did for, I guess, that preliminary final?
Honestly, at the moment, it's not really like, I don't really have any expectations at the moment, because obviously the last 2 years we've come out the gates firing, we've looked good all the way up to like the back end of the season and just kind of capitulated. So I think at the moment, like, I think the next couple of years aren't really about winning, so I don't really expect to win. But I think it just goes back to actually, making the finals again and actually winning one. Because been 20 years, so like
It's a long time.
winning one is enough for me at the moment. Obviously you want to win, a premiership, but like just win a final, that's all.
Yeah, I'm sure that you'll be following on that journey, and with your experience of the Timberwolves, you'll definitely be understanding what it's like to be bad. And I think Essendon are going to be bad for a long time, but eventually it might equate to something. And I think that's what all the Essendon fans are striving for. And despite that, I've got to give it to Essendon fans. They've gone through a lot as a club. They still managed to get a lot of people watching and a lot of people passionate. And I think it does come with a bit of naivety, especially. And it's what I like about supporting small teams as well, or any team for that matter. When the season starts, before the season starts, the anticipation and then the false reality, it all comes in and that excitement comes again. So I think that's something I love about sports as well. Like, despite how bad you went last season, you're always looking forward to the next season. So this year, footy's obviously started as of late, and having that feeling of Collingwood being back is just exciting. And even for you, like, despite maybe Essendon not going to be doing as well, that excitement is still there to go through that pain and go through that time, because eventually it's going to get to a point where it's another year of a rebuild, another year of development, and they're going to eventually, hopefully, win a final. 20 years is a lot, but when it gets there, it'll be amazing. So it's kind of wanted to talk about as well. Wanted to mention
One day.
Oh, I'm hoping for your sake, not for mine. But I think before we wrap up, I think we just want to just probably cover a few of these topics. I think what keeps us supporting these teams? So, like, obviously they're doing bad, but why don't we just, we had enough, we won't watch, or we'll move another team? What do you think that comes from?
As in, like, just not watching the games anymore, or like not
A bit of both. So, like,
associating.
what, like, realistically, right? Who stops us? Like, I could look at the Wizards now and support them, right? And I'd
Yeah,
just be like, look, I'm not going to support them. I'm not going to watch them. I'm going to move teams. Like,
yeah,
what keeps us there? What are those benefits? So I can say for me, if you want me to help, I can say that I support the Wizards because eventually I feel as though that we need to go through this big rebuild to get to where we need to be in the future. Because there's been so many years where the Wizards have just been mid and had these players that are supposedly on big contracts, high caliber, that should be in the playoffs that never did make the playoffs. So for me, it was like, for years I've been telling you, we need to rebuild. We need to start again. We need to go through a bit of torture to eventually get where we need to be. So seeing the young boys develop and looking at these young players, in 5 years, I can see them being potential playoff stars or superstars. And then I feel happy and success through them. And then eventually when they do win, it's going to be like, we started from the bottom, now we're here. That's
yeah.
kind of where I'm asking, yeah.
Well, yeah, definitely. I think
Yeah.
it just goes back to, wanting to watch your team, your players grow and develop into what they're supposed to be. I guess it's exciting because everyone's kind of different. Some people just want to watch like when the team is good, kind of thing. So like if you there would be Wizards fans out there that don't even care about the team at the moment, because obviously, I don't know. Do you have the worst record in the NBA, or is it?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah,
Utah's
well,
coming close to us because we started winning a few, but we're still, the worst. And hope we
yeah.
do stay the worst because I really want Cooper Flag. So
Capture the flag, huh?
capture the flag, mate. All year I've been saying
Yeah,
that. So.
there's definitely like there's different groups of fans. Like some people only want to watch when it's good. There's other people that will watch like good, bad, or ugly. Like we have a few friends like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think what stops people from supporting their team is the expectation that they have themselves. I feel like some people do want to watch these young players play because it gives them joy to see people grow into like a more mature version of themselves.
Sure.
Whereas there's other people that just want to see the finished product. And there's some people that don't want to see bad. They feel like they're wasting their own time watching a team that, doesn't look like they're giving it their all, or, obviously you're giving your time for them, they're not giving their time for you, kind of that like transactionary
Yeah.
thing. I guess those are the two main like things. Then there's obviously like barriers that you can't really like stop. Like the Premier League's at like 3-4 o'clock in the morning. It's not very easy to watch
Yeah,
that,
of course.
regardless of how good or
Yeah.
bad your team is. And I guess work. I guess social like stuff like that. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of things. For me, it's more like if I can watch the game, I will watch the game, regardless of if my team's good or bad. Because on the surface, if my team's terrible, I'd watch the game and think we're going to lose. But if we win, it's going to set me up for good.
Yeah.
The rest of my day will just be good. I'll eat better, I'll sleep better, you know what I mean?
Of course.
And that's the crazy thing. We'll touch more about on the NBA. Like, you could go for the worst team in the league, and you're probably going to see them win 20 times in a season.
Yeah, of
It's still a
82.
lot.
Yeah, it is.
It just makes it feel a lot better because, like, you're not trying to be good, but seeing your team win, regardless of the situation, is always a good time.
Of course. Well, we just beat the Denver Nuggets back to back this
Yeah,
season.
that's
2-0
it.
against one of the best teams in the NBA, and we're the Washington Wizards. So I get what you're saying there. And I think I want to put a message out to, if there are any like young people that are obviously trying to get into sport, because we're also trying to reach that younger audience too, that are just trying to find their sporting identity and kind of see where their lives kind of relate to this. Because a lot of young kids probably don't know that. What would your advice be to probably ones trying to support a team and give, I guess, a pitch to why they should probably go through the suffering, if we haven't obviously given them 40 minutes of that content already, but just maybe like 2 or 3 pointers.
The first one would be, it's not always going to be good, regardless of who you go for. So you may as well go for a team that's not expected to be good because it'll feel so much better. I guess the second one would be more like a
Look.
pride thing. When you're like, when you're proud of what your team can do, like it really shows. Like regardless of what sport it is, who you go for, when they're doing good, they're doing good. When they're doing bad, they're doing bad. Like you're still going to go for that team. So, I guess, fuck, I don't even know, man. Like,
Well, I mean, you could talk about. I'll jump in there. I can say the loyalty aspect as well. So probably the third point, because I would say the first 2 points you have are correct, and then just tying in here for the third point, I would definitely say the loyalty aspect, knowing that you've gone through the tough times and you've been there, and that shows your like unconditional support for this team. So that means that you were there. You can claim, and again, it goes sort of to ego, but you can claim that you have gone through the rough times and then you've got this success. And I'm telling you, maybe not now, but when you get to that, you'll feel better. You will feel better as a fan, and you'll feel like you've been a part of a journey. And I think it relates to our lives as well. Like I don't think everyone sees things and they think that those people, and I mentioned this with my podcast with Nath, go check that out, episode 4, that people just see what's the success is, but they don't really understand the hard work that goes beyond that. And I think that relates the same to being as a fandom of a sport, and even the sporting players and people involved in that organization as well. To get there is so much satisfying when you understand the journey as well, and it's so much more rewarding than just having it on a platter and giving it to you. Yes, you'll feel good, but you won't know the suffering that comes from it. So I think that's probably helping you out there, my third point. But I think before closing it out, just as a joke, when do you think the Bombers are going to win a premiership? Which year, if you were to choose any year?
if I was to choose any year,
Just
2025.
late 2025. Dreaming, bud.
You gotta say it.
You gotta say it. Well, I beg to differ. I think the Pies have got it this year in the bag, but we'll have to.
Do you mean a premiership or just a game?
Oh, a premiership, but you can, of course, a game. I'd like to think you would win a game this year, but a premiership, a finals game, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say like a premiership.
Oh, okay. Well, gonna have to say 2025 as well.
Yeah, well,
You go back.
yeah, well, I think. You never know. I've seen crazier things, so we'll leave it at that. Joe, again, thank you so much for coming on, being a bit of a side guest, and hopefully I'll get you on again, and we can kind of continue to bounce ideas and whatnot. And really hope you enjoyed. Yeah, your first time on a podcast. No, all good, all good. Guys, I've also got some Huddle merch that I'm potentially releasing. I'm not sure yet, but as you can probably see my logo on there. This is a bit of a sample one. I'm in plans of making like hoodies and t-shirts and eventually hats. So if you are keen on one, just let me know. If you're also happy with Joe being on here, also let me know as well. But again, thank you. Oh, he's got the required. He's putting out the required out there. Be sure to check out the required too. Mate, Nathan, we've had him on the podcast as well. He does clothing brands, as mentioned. Please check out his story as well on that episode. It's a very good listen too. And he's got some banging clothes. Like, that hat is unbelievable. I think I got the hat in there somewhere, but this beanie's staying on for the premise of this with my bad team suffering. So hopefully one day they do win a NBA championship, and I'll be there to say that I was there from the start. But again, thank you so much, guys. So that's a wrap for this week's episode of the Huddle Within podcast. I appreciate you for tuning in and being part of this community where we go beyond the game and into what really matters. If this episode resonated with you, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who sees sports just the way that we do. And hey, I'd love to hear from you. Connect with me on my social medias, which will be linked below. Send in your thoughts and even be part of a future episode. Until next time, keep that passion alive, stay in the huddle, and remember, it's always deeper than the game. Cheers.